Hey guys, thank you. Thank you for joining us today. We're going to talk about two areas that California has always led in technology and entertainment, how we can not only hone it, but keep it, grow it. It's so important, especially down here. And among the things we're going to talk about today, which I find the most interesting, is the difference between Silicon Beach down here and Silicon Valley. Different in culture, difference in funding. How can we get more local venture capitalists to fund local technology companies? How can we keep local engineering staff and engineers to stay here and not go north? What are the new trends? What about virtual reality? What's coming next down the pike? What government should or should not do to nurture these businesses and keep California strong? Why would you want to do business in California right now? That sort of thing. I am going to start with one question. How many people in this room know who PewDiePie is? How many people have never heard of PewDiePie? Okay, you're in for a bit of an education. PewDiePie is probably one of the most famous people in the world. He is a YouTube star. He has 40 million subscribers. His videos have had 10 billion views. That means everybody in the world has watched one and half the world's watched another, more or less. He is a multimillionaire. So that's sort of what we're talking about, how entertainment is changing, where it's going, the distribution platforms, the technology, and how California can stay on top of that. I want to show one slide first, slide number 2. It says 9% of all jobs in Los Angeles are technology jobs, and 17% of payroll wages in Los Angeles are technology. And I would say that's not just the companies you see up there, but I'm talking about SpaceX, Boeing, Aerojet, Rocketdyne, those kinds of engineering and those kinds of technology jobs, not entertainment related, but that's the sort of thing we're talking about. How do we grow this down here? I'm already getting tweets. I'm going to introduce each of our panelists and have them sort of make an opening statement or answer a question right off the bat. Then we're going to have a conversation, and I hope to leave time for questions. The more pointed your questions are, usually the better the answer you get. Ladies first. I'm going to start with Beatriz Acevedo, who is the co-founder and president of mitú, which is, I don't know, would you describe it as a YouTube for a Latino community? And do you still have to explain that and sell that concept?
Well, I think we don't consider ourselves a YouTube for Latinos. We consider ourselves a digital media company for mobile Latino generation, not only in the US, but worldwide. It is an incredible market. It's an incredible opportunity. Yes, we still have to explain why this makes sense, and we're still shocked that nobody had seen the opportunity before when, as you all know, population growth today in this country is driven by Latinos. But you might not know that this is the demo that consumes the most digital content in our country.
The most?
The most. So about 2 hours more than non-Hispanics is the consumption a month between
on things like this?
On mobile specifically. So we over-index in purchasing on digital. We over-index in sharing. We over-index in consumption. So when you have the two, just the boom of digital video and the population growth combined, it's just an incredible opportunity. And also you have an underserved market and an underrepresented demo in general media. So just the combination of all of that was sort of like a no-brainer for us to start mitú.
How much of your content is in English?
I would say the majority of the content produced in the US is in English because younger audiences consume in English in this country, but we are a global company, so the content that we produce abroad for Latin America and Spain, Portugal, Brazil is in Spanish and in Portuguese.
And these are early adopters, earlier than the US as a whole, would you say?
Yeah, they're very early adopters, and I think one of the key things is because we've had very, very little reinvention in media in the past 50 years for Hispanics, not only in this country, but abroad. And there is very little content that speaks to this younger demographic.
Why has no one done this? Why are you?
You know what? I mean, big media companies today still make a great business out of what they've been doing for the past 50 years. So if there's no need to fix it, they don't. They see as that this is the future or the present, but they still make a lot of media out of traditional broadcast, and there's still an older demographic that consumes it, and there's still advertisers that pay for it, so it's still a very good business for them. But looking into the future, there's just hasn't been that desire to take a bet and to put their resources into the newer generation. So it was a great opportunity for us, for sure.
John Bolton is VP of Business Development for Flipagram, which is an app that lets you take your own pictures and make little videos of them with your own music that you've already purchased and downloaded. I made one. Here's my Flipagram. As soon as I can find my, nope, there we go. It's of my dogs. Yeah, because I was away most of last week, and they were not happy about that.
My daughter gave me a tutorial last night on how to make one. So.
Well, it's very easy. And that's the thing I will say about it. It took me about 2 minutes to make that video. I do have a question over whether or not I have even though I purchased the song, I have the rights to use that song in a video. You
do, and that's one of the unique things about Flipagram. The quick background, the company's only about 2 years old now, but it's been an extraordinary 2 years. It was launched November 2013, and it was New Year's Eve, December 2013, where millions of people in one day downloaded the app because they wanted to do their year-end review. And the app at the time was, in 90 countries, was the top downloaded app. And investors from Silicon Valley knocked on the door down here immediately. And within a month, about a month and a half, the company raised $70 million. And since then, we have been building the business. And one of the main roles that I have in the company was to get the rights to the music. We make free clips available for users to add to their videos. You can use your own music as well, but we're fully licensed for that. And it's actually an extraordinary marriage between technology and entertainment, one of the themes today that we've demonstrated. But being able to be licensed has allowed us to grow and invest, bring artists. There's 1,000 verified artists on Flipagram that are now making Flipagrams with their own music, building audience on our platform. But we've had over 170 million installs in 2 years. We're on Android, we're on iPhone, and we're really trying to build the next social network. I think when you look at social media today, you have Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Snapchat, and a lot of these apps are really based on moments and highlights. And what we think that is driving our demand is the desire to tell more. We all live on social media now. But we want to share more than just one photo or just one tweet. We want to tell the story. And ultimately, that's what we see is people wanting to tell their own stories with their own photos, their own videos, but with music, with text, and creating these videos and sharing them not just on the Flipagram network, but Flipagrams are shared on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter, even YouTube. And so we're straddling multiple networks while building our own. In fact, a lot of the reason we were able to grow so quickly is because millions of people would make their videos, share out on social media, and then that would drive all the growth back organically. We've actually never done marketing or advertising.
How do you make money?
That's the next step. We're in this really fun phase where we got a lot of money, and our mission now is to continue to build out the platform, continue to scale. But going into next year, there's a lot of opportunities to scale. These are short videos, on average 30 seconds. And we have designed it in a way to convert people. So we're starting to see brands use Flipagram to make these videos. Imagine, when you want to make a video, it's actually hard. You need a camera, a computer. The music rights are not included. Then you need distribution. We're all these things in one app. So even for a brand, a marketing intern can go make a great, powerful video on Flipagram on their iPhone and instantly have that out to their audience. And so a lot of these brands are organically joining the network, so there's a lot of monetization opportunities there.
We're going to talk about survivors later, and also sort of the tension between entertainment and technology. We're all going to talk about that eventually, but first, Jason Kirk is filling in nicely for Zach James, who couldn't be here today. But you feed him all his lines anyhow. Is
Of
what
course.
you say from Zephyr. It's hard to believe this. Is this what 5 years ago?
Wasn't that big?
Well, no, but it wasn't even around, was it?
I think it was.
2000 and no?
Close.
Okay.
Wasn't as big.
It's been a long week.
7 maybe?
Yeah.
7 years ago, and then YouTube hasn't been around. Well, it hasn't been around a decade. But Zephyr, unlike content generators, Zephyr seems to be more. And please explain to me exactly what it does. More of a content monitor, rights protector, monetizing agent for those who own the content. Yes, do I have it?
Yeah, that's pretty good. Basically we're a B2B video ID technology for both rights holders and major brands. So if you're Warner Brothers and someone uploads a clip of Dark Knight, we find it for them, we monetize it, we data mine it, we help them use it as a marketing tool. And if you are a brand, we think that the power of social video, because we do this on YouTube, we work on SoundCloud, we're part of Facebook's beta as well, we think the power of social video is the idea of mindset, not too dissimilar from television, but nowadays you can know that what my zip code is and who my friends are, but I'm many people at different parts of the day. I'm an executive part of the day, I'm a father part of the day, I'm a surfer, not as much as part of the day as I'd like, but the video I'm watching in that moment tells a lot about me. So for advertisers, we help pinpoint the content that is most relevant to their message. So someone can come to us and say, hey, I'm trying to target millennials around music festivals. We create a product that allows them to have their ad only be placed in front of videos about Coachella or Bonnaroo or getting ready for Lollapalooza. And as a result, we create transparency and a much more contextual alignment between the brand and the viewer, so they are more likely to engage in the ad.
So if I download the Dark Knight, how do you help Warner Brothers monetize it? How do you help monetize it?
Sure. So 2 ways. First of all, they have a choice whether they want to keep it up or not. Warner Brothers is a great example because they're pretty out in front in terms of being open to that idea. If it's a full-length feature, we'll take it down for them because that's obviously affecting their other business. But short-form content is a new revenue stream for them. So once we find it, either our sales team will go out and monetize it and sell it to brands directly, or YouTube will monetize it. And that part of our business is a combination of revenue share on the advertising, or some of the companies pay us a straight fee, more of a SaaS model.
Okay. Chris Williams is Chief Audience Officer at Maker Studio, which is the largest distributor and producer of online content. They partner with PewDiePie to bring us full circle here, bought by Disney for an insane amount of money. And, well, maybe not an insane amount of money. It was the big.
We're happy.
Yeah, exactly. What does this town, this has been an entertainment town, in your opinion, what does this town still not understand about technology?
You know, I think this has always been an extraordinarily challenging environment vis-a-vis Northern California, right? In Northern California, it is the most fertile ground in the world for developing technology. The ability to plant early seeds there and grow them, and the support systems that exist there, the talent, in particular the engineering talent that exists there, is robust. And I think here in Southern California, we've been fairly challenged in that regard. I oftentimes will, in the context of this being an entertainment town, say, in Silicon Valley, the engineer is the star. And here in LA, they are the extra. And I think that culture of competing for engineering talent and compelling them to stay down here is something that we've made progress on, but that we really need to continue to make lots of progress on. Now, Maker is first and foremost a content company. We leverage technology in order to really help us do what we do in this new environment of mobile and a whole new class of creator, and have a fairly robust engineering team of about 60, 70 engineers, and are constantly developing new technologies to both service these digital creators who are actually in 100 different countries. We have 60,000 digital creator partners across the globe in over 100 countries. And we are leveraging technology to really support them at scale, and those can be different tool sets that give them a higher level of analytics and actionable analytics. It can be ways, products to distribute more broadly than just platforms like YouTube, but all over the place. We are using technology, for example, at Maker to make our onboarding process for new creators much more efficient. In fact, this is one of the more impactful technologies that we developed early on. It used to take us between 4 to 6 weeks to onboard a new creator coming from the YouTube platform. It now takes us 4 to 6 hours.
Wow.
And that is absolutely through technology, a patented process called fast partnership flow. And we still find ourselves greatly competing with Northern California for engineering talent.
Do you need the talent in the room? I mean, do you need the engineers here? And how much better, you know?
Yeah, I think you do. I think from a cultural perspective, especially in an environment where tech is really part of the overall content process, that having a separate culture would be a big problem. Now, having said that, we have some engineers in New York that came via an acquisition we made of a company called Blip that was very focused on a video player and a very specific type of technology that we needed to fast forward for ourselves. But I think culturally, it's very, very important that you keep those engineers close to the rest of the company. And I think there's a lot we can do. And I think Silicon Beach has started to do it. I think companies like, having a Snapchat, coming out of Los Angeles, which is a true technology company, is very critical to attracting talent that then the rest of us can benefit from.
How do you do that? So how do you keep the engineers that are coming out of Caltech or Harvey Mudd or wherever they're going to school down here? How do you keep them here and not have them either want to go to work for Goldman Sachs or go up to Silicon Valley?
I mean, I'll say, look, it starts with our CTO. Like, you need an extraordinary leader of your tech team to be able to compel people to come down. I mean, it definitely starts there.
I think you need to have some proven success. I think we've had extraordinary scale, and we got a good round of funding, so that is critical to attracting talent. I mean, the first thing anyone does is they'll Google you, and if there's no evidence of any of those things, they're probably not even going to return your phone call. But funding and scale, I think, are two of the most important things to attract.
It's a great point.
Yeah.
Engineers love to work on products that millions of people use.
Yeah.
But to that point, when we were early on, we heard rather bluntly from some engineers up north that were thinking is, look, I don't know if you're going to work. In San Francisco, there's another startup lining up the street. I'm happy to say that this ecosystem has only grown in the last 4 years and quite impressively. So we don't hear that as much anymore. And we also play a lot on the culture and the lifestyle that is Los Angeles. Some people like the idea that they can, we have a lot of bike racks at the office, and that's appealing to a lot of people. But I think it's true. We have a healthy round of funding. We have a strong business. We've scaled quite largely. Our rights business, we're now managing almost 4 billion views a month just on that. So people, to Chris's point, they want to come and be a part of something big.
Is there a critical mass here yet?
I don't believe so.
I don't think so.
I mean, for us, it's even more challenging because I think that our CTO role was the hardest to fill in the company in general. It took us a long time to find the perfect fit. He is not a Latino. It would have been great to have somebody who understands the culture. He's a very passionate man understanding the culture, but he was the best guy for the job. And
Did you find him here?
we did. No, we brought him from San Francisco.
Aha.
Along with his entire team. And some are still up north.
But it's, what is it, 75 degrees outside right now and sunny, so
Yeah.
we got that.
But that was definitely, out of every position in our company, that was the hardest to fill. But also we have that extra thing to entice them with when we love our charts of this population growth. You have to be in business with Latinos to grow. This is the demo. This is the company to be with. And everybody who works for a startup and sees that growth and that potential, that was it was for us to pick, but it wasn't so much of a battle of, oh, we're going to pick between your company and somebody else. If you have a compelling, a well-funded company, you've a proven track record, and then you can show them where the growth is and where the opportunity and how there's very few companies like yours, then it's a good selling point. But for us just to find the candidates was challenging.
So one of the keys to building down here is to have more funding down here.
Certainly.
You've been a
Funding's
success story in
great.
that. All your funding's been from LA, hasn't
All
it
of
been?
our funding has been from LA. Our Series A was led by Peter Chernin, and our Series B was led by Upfront Ventures, which we share an investor there.
So how do you get VC down here? How do you get funding down here? How do you sell that case?
We're actually largely funded by Silicon Valley, so IVP.
So you're still going up there to get money?
Absolutely. I mean, look, I think it was important to us to focus on institutional venture up north to we were a technology company, we weren't a consumer-facing company. We wanted to have that kind of, in the beginning, truthfully, it was a legitimacy thing, but also the experience and the relationships that the companies that believed in us had were quite valuable to us. We were fortunate that we had all come from businesses where we knew people at the studios and the music labels, and we could get those deals. What we wanted is to kind of be part of that culture from an investment standpoint, but still being on Abbott Kinney and getting to do our thing. And I think what attracted them, and what they'd probably tell you attracted them to us, was the fact that we were focused more on B2B, that we were, we joke that because we weren't content creators.
You were an animal they were more familiar with.
Yeah, we were hiring engineers, not editors, because we were saying, look, there's a lot of great companies like Maker and the studios that can create content. That's not what we want to do. We want to help lift that all up. So I think that, plus the ability to be both ad supported and have kind of a SaaS model, was attracted them. There tends to be the boxes to check, and we fortunately checked a lot of them, and I think that's why they invested in a LA company.
You did successfully pivot to that. Originally, the company was movie clips.
That's
and
right.
Actually, were doing a lot of content, and that was this really successful pivot.
Yeah. Well, the board's key. We have the chairman of Sequoia Capital, who's Silicon Valley,
Right.
Mike Moritz, on our board, and the chairman of Kleiner Perkins on our board, John Doerr. So that's Silicon Valley, but those names are mega names in tech. And,
Right, they open doors for you.
They
right?
absolutely open doors, and they attract talent. And so we're happy to use Silicon Valley names to attract local engineers here, and it works. I mean, those board members absolutely help us get. But one other comment on are we improving here in terms of tech? I think Google and Facebook are building campuses right now, very large campuses. Yahoo has a big presence here. To me, we're definitely on an upward trajectory. I think those are big signs of progress for LA.
You've, of course, teamed with the biggest traditional media name in the world in LA, and it's one of the last companies still headquartered in LA. That's where you got so much funding. And what have been the lessons learned in that relationship that you can talk about?
Well, I will give a lot of credit to the CEO of the Walt Disney Company. I mean, Bob Iger is an incredible media executive. I would say the best in the business. And, he'll often say things, and I'm paraphrasing, but, if you're going to get disrupted, disrupt yourself. He has a true desire to innovate. And I think the acquisition of Maker by Disney was very much one where he felt that he could fast forward Disney's presence on new platforms, and particularly mobile with millennial audiences, that there was an opportunity to embrace a new set of creators and use great content from creators to help build new owned and operated media distribution brands, a business they're very familiar with. I think that attracted them greatly. We had taken a very LA approach to our fundraising early on. So our investors were essentially LA-based. Our Series A was Upfront and Graycroft, and we had a kind of hodgepodge of successful entertainment professionals as a part of that as well. So people like Robert Downey Jr. and John Landau, the producer of Avatar. And so we kind of played a little bit on the sex appeal of content and entertainment in Hollywood. And our trajectory after that, when we got into our B's and C rounds, really started to become oriented around strategic partnerships with major media companies, because we do, at our core, we are developing content with creators. And that was really successful. Time Warner was actually our largest investor prior to the acquisition of Maker by Disney. And that worked really well for us. We had a lot of demand amongst major media companies to be our strategic partners. And we didn't even go into our first conversations with Disney about acquisition. It was never about acquisition. It was frankly, well, at least to us. To them, it might have been a little more so. But we, really were looking at what would a fabulous strategic partnership be with the Walt Disney Company, the owner and controller of the most popular intellectual property for entertainment in the world. And ultimately, conversations evolved, and Bob really became compelled with what we were doing and acquired us.
Let's talk about the culture down here versus up there some more. How do you sell it? What's good about it? What could be better about the Silicon Beach? I find Silicon Beach more interesting, of course I'm biased, than Silicon Valley, because Silicon Valley, to me, is sort of like, it's set in its disruptive ways, if that makes sense. I feel things maybe are more collaborative and no rules down here. How do you sell that? How could it be better?
I think up north the culture is very, obviously, just like it was said before, the star is the engineer, the stars is the tech team. And here there's still that part of like the magic, part science, part magic. And I think for both of our companies, and it sort of makes sense that our investors were based in LA, it makes them a bit less nervous when you are a content company that has a tech component to it. Whereas up north, when we took at least our meetings with investors, they were excited about the opportunity for the demo, but it was always like, well, how much tech is in the mix? How could you do less content and spend more in hiring more engineers? And so the balance there always tends to be much more driven towards tech. So.
But should something change? I know, for example, at Zephyr, you had the war room where the staff played games, and it was kind of what you've heard about what they do up north, where you give people. I assume it improves productivity, but you kind of create that atmosphere of a startup, and people have games, and then we work to death or whatever it is.
Well, it's very interesting.
We do work to death.
Yeah.
We all work pretty hard, but and I see Mr. Wyatt in the audience. My first job was at ICM about 15 years ago, and I felt very lucky to get the job. And I was lucky because it was very competitive right out of school. We meet a lot of engineers that are talented on paper, but haven't, in some cases, even worked anywhere, and they feel very entitled to get the job. And you have to kind of play to that reality, because I don't think that we have the same level of talent yet. I think it's a great point that these large technology companies are building true campuses out here, and it helps to validate. And that telephone game where it's like, dude, I moved down here, it's great, I bike to work, you should think about it. It's actually one of the few places that's actually cheaper compared to San Francisco. So they start to tell their friends and colleagues, and it changes. But it's tricky, and culture is a big part of it. Look, it's always been part of our company fabric to do things to celebrate, and I think it goes a long way. But there's still a challenge, and we don't always want the guy or the girl from Facebook or Yahoo. Our company is moving really fast. I wish those companies still moved as fast, but they don't. For obvious reasons, and so sometimes that's the perfect fit. Sometimes we need someone who can really jump in and not have all that. Well, at Facebook we did this, at Google we do that. So we're trying to find the perfect fit for us, which may not be the perfect fit for Maker or Flipagram or mitú.
Yeah. I think we use our strengths at Flipagram because we're very tied in with the music industry. We're licensed with all the labels and publishers. They all have huge presence here. Some are headquartered here. There's very little entertainment in up north. And I think by leveraging the fact that we're licensed, by having so many artists on our platform that use it, that is definitely something that we're at Universal headquarters almost every week. And so I think those relationships and having that alliance is something that we claim as an LA thing. I have a lot of people who are from Universal and Sony that actually work for me at Flipagram. And so I think leveraging that entertainment experience and relationship is attractive to anybody. And in fact, I've interviewed with engineers at Flipagram. They're like, "Do you guys have the deals yet? Because if you don't, you're screwed." and we did, and that was very helpful. So.
Yeah, I think the mix of entertainment and diversity for us is very, very important. You know, just LA is such a diverse place. And for us also, a big advantage is, or we see it as an advantage, is that we're able to give opportunity to a lot of people on the tech side also that, you know, for many years have complained that they've never gotten the opportunity, right? They were Latinos or they were women, and they never got the job. And in our organization, those people shine, and we're happy to nurture them and mentor them and help them grow. So we are very, very focused on mentoring talent within our company. So that makes it really exciting for everybody. I mean, we love to call ourselves a mitú familia, mitú family, and people do feel like that. They're building the next big media company for this generation that hasn't been invented in 50 years, and that makes them very, very proud to go to work every day, and that's very exciting to us.
California is a very expensive place to live, to do business, a very highly regulated place. What could government do? What should it do? What should it not do? I think you were talking about H-1B visas.
Yeah, visas. I've been at 3 tech startups in LA in the past 10 years, and every time and every company, getting talent from outside the U.S. has always been a challenge. It's expensive. There's a lot of process and bureaucracy. And you know, I think every major tech leader always talks, you know, Bill Gates is always talking about this, but it's a real problem. We certainly hire locally, but there's definitely talent outside the U.S. that isn't here.
Given what happened in San Bernardino, could that impact?
Well, if Trump wins, yeah.
Let's not get started on that topic.
I don't think so. I hope not. I don't.
It's a bit of an odd turn, but it is sort of, you all manage companies with diverse peoples who've probably come from all over the world. Has workplace safety, has that been a fear, the potential for discrimination, has that been a topic at all in the last week that you've had to manage through?
Well, we come from that world, from the discrimination. But people in our office are very diverse. We have people from Cuba, from Puerto Rico, from Venezuela, from Argentina, Mexico. And unfortunately, we're a very resilient sort of group. I mean, we grew up with a lot of these incidents in our own country. So for our office, it's always very unfortunate to see anything happen in any country. And it feels like this place that is such a safe place for us to live and work in might be threatened. But on the other side, people sort of like just take it one day at a time. As Latinos in general in culture, is like work hard, play hard, and every day could be your last day. So it just reminds us of something we grew up with in our own cultures, to work in places that you really love, work with people that you really can learn from, do your best every day because you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So I think it hits closer to home because you feel so safe by living in this country, but yet it always reminds you of how you grew up with.
Any of you had to manage through this at all?
I feel like while there was obviously incredible sympathy for the families and folks involved, I didn't find it something that was pervasive from a fear perspective in our offices. And you know, obviously Disney provides a lot of resources for people who may have concerns to access, but I really didn't find it as something that was disruptive, other than the conversations around kind of obviously being very sympathetic to the families. Like, people didn't come to work afraid. Like, I did not notice that at all. Like, I think people were pretty strong and resilient.
Let's talk about trends. I mentioned this to you. I can't manage everything. I've got Snapchat, Flipagram, Vine, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, which I've got like 5 million messages on LinkedIn. I'm like, I'll get to you someday. In 5 years, what's still there? It's too much to manage. And it's also, again, with content. I've gotten to the point where now, all right, I'm not going to be able to see every fantastic television program there is out there. I just have to write some of these off. When you see 5 years down the road, are we just going to be able to have more and more and more with niche audience?
Yeah.
I think you need a center of gravity. I mean, as an artist, I think a creator, you in particular, you have all these platforms, you're communicating to your audience of fans. And I think that for most creators and talent that we work with, that choosing a center of gravity is very important. So one platform might be primary and the rest might be ancillary. And so whether you're a YouTube star who has like a PewDiePie, who has an extraordinarily big audience on YouTube, and that's the primary platform for him to distribute his content and engage with his fans. He obviously has a Facebook and a Twitter, but they're less, he gives them the attention they need, and we support him in that. But I feel like having a center of gravity, in particular as an artist or a creator, is really important, but that you can add on. I recently asked one of our bigger stars, a guy named Bart Baker, who does these fabulous music parodies. They get hundreds of millions of views. How he knows to move on to a platform. Like when is it big enough, or what's more interesting about it enough for you as an artist to go amass an audience there and engage with your audience there? And he actually had a funny joke, as he said, when Tyler Oakley does it, who's another big YouTube star who's very, very much on the cutting edge of all this stuff. And so I think for artists, it's finding their center of gravity, and then how do they build out these sort of ancillary communication. So obviously LinkedIn being very ancillary to you, for example.
Well,
There's a trend where there's this interesting graph that shows mind share, that mobile and social apps are taking mind share, and it's on this curve where all of us are spending more and more time on mobile, on these apps, on Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever it is. And it really is this steep curve, and it's eating into everything else. In fact, the article is saying it's eating into sleep. People, especially the younger generations, are on their phone now because at the expense of sleep. But TV's going down, all these other things are going down, and mobile's. The headline of another article, it's been in my head for a while, mobile's eating everything. It really is pervading every aspect of life. With your phone, you can get a doctor to your door, groceries to your door, a car to your door. There's all kinds of social media.
Will that only grow, or does it plateau at some point?
Well, it has to plateau. We have to sleep.
Right. Or does it change? Does there eventually end up being pushed back?
It is changing. I think it's changing. I think Twitter is, last I heard, is generally in decline. So, it had its peak. It's coming down, and it's being displaced. Snapchat is displacing others, and Flipagram is now displacing some other networks. So it's definitely there's cannibalization happening there.
I think the content too. We have a lot more choice to what we can watch, and I find myself watching things today that 5 years ago weren't accessible. Whether that's my Colorado Buffaloes, because now there's a Pac-12 network, or surfing competition.
Sorry.
I know. Basketball season. Basketball season.
Go Buffs.
Or because now you can see the live events from Jaws with the World Surf League because they have an app and you can watch it. And I think that what we see, because we work with a lot of media companies, is that we're seeing where people are watching and consuming their content is changing. It's undeniable. And I think to the point about there's only so much time in the day, we all know that they're not tuning in Thursday at 8 o'clock on Channel 4 like they used to, but that doesn't mean they're not watching that show at some other point on Netflix or on demand and things like that. And I think that certain platforms will appeal to certain audiences,
Right.
and especially the younger audiences, as they grow and their lives change, they tend to switch around. And I think that's why any platform that can hone that audience, it's pretty special because it's hard to keep their attention.
How fragile is it? I feel like you in particular will have a very, I don't want to out you, but you were a MySpace executive.
Boy, MySpace and the Buffaloes in one panel, I'm getting it.
Wow. Harsh.
But, is it fragile? For MySpace
Yeah.
it was.
Look, I think that, we could do a whole other panel on that, but I think you have to be focused on the user. I think one area where we may have made a mistake is we focused more on the business too soon than on the user and really solidifying our place, and that affected us. And I think to John's point about we're figuring out the model, but guess what? We're growing the audience, and you can't have a business without that scale. So I think that, and all these companies have done it. You know, we were tasked within 2.5 years of our existence to be profitable. And I would look back at Facebook and Twitter and YouTube, and if they were told the same thing, they may not be here either. So it's easy to poke. But I think honestly the companies have learned about what to focus on, because if you can get and hold on to that audience, the business opportunities abound.
That's a great answer.
I mean, what does the audience need is always, you know, a very good thermometer. No, what's the pain point, whether you're developing an app or you're creating content. For our demo, it's definitely just different type of content that is not a soap opera, that it's not soccer. I love soccer, but just something that is counter-programming to that.
What is your most popular channel? What is the most popular content you're providing right now?
I mean, it depends on the audience, because if you tell me male audiences, they tend to be very comedy-driven, music-driven. Female audiences, more stereotypical lifestyle content. They're big into music as well. So it really depends. I say it would be the same as what Maker is or any other digital platform. The difference for us is that there's so little that has that cultural wing, because we talked about the difference between English and Spanish, and for many people, they think, oh, you are a Spanish language network. We're like, no, we are a network for Hispanic audiences, but not necessarily in Spanish. 90% of US Hispanics speak English and consume content in English. So you don't really need to speak Spanish to target our demographic or be in business with our demographic. So, but so then we had this question earlier when you said, well, do you really need that cultural wink?
Right.
And you do.
If I am a Mexican American, why do I need to go to mitú if I can get the same kind of content?
Well, you don't get the same kind of content. You get the same kind of content that you get in general media, which is no representation of who we are. You will also get the stereotypical representation of who we are over and over again. So when you go to mitú, it's content that's made by these creators who are real, they're authentic, they're giving you their experience. And maybe when there's something about comedy, you get the extra joke that could be for everybody, but then there's something extra for you. If you are that Mexican American, you got 1 or 2 extra jokes that nobody else got, but it didn't bother you. And you know, I love to give this example that was from many years ago on TV. They got it right 50 years ago with I Love Lucy, right? I was like, well, that was the most successful show for Latinos in this country. And people were like, what do you mean? I'm like, it was, because for general audiences, you would never consider I Love Lucy as a show for Latinos. It was a really funny, great show. But for me, when Ricky went on to speak in Spanish about Lucy, esta mujer que me está matando, que la quiero odiar, then I'd be like, oh my God, that was an extra joke that I got that was specially for me, that I enjoyed, and that I appreciated. But it did not alienate everybody else in the audience. Everyone else just thought, this is a great show. And this is the type of content that we make. So I think for us, when you ask the question, what's next and where's the growth, for us, it's definitely in content that has that wing to our culture. I was doing some research as far as like growth for OTT in the next 5 years. And
that's cord cutting, that's over the top. And
yeah, over the streaming, you know, like Netflix. And you obviously know shocker, Asia Pacific #1 in growth, but it is a shocker #2 and #3, which is Brazil and Mexico. Right? You think, wow, I mean, these are countries that, again, are very underserved, and there's a big need, and there's an opportunity there. So I think for us, it's continuing to serve the underserved audiences in that niche kind of way, but that can also be mainstream, but that you have that wink. That's very important.
You've talked about virtual reality. What's coming down the pike with that and some other trends you see, Chris?
Sure. I think you know, virtual reality is one I like, especially for Southern California, because it's a kind of a confluence of content and technology together. And you know, you have companies here like Oculus that was acquired by Facebook, and others. There's Jaunt, where Disney's recently made a large investment, along with some other companies, for virtual reality. And you have to think of it as the sort of dawn of a new, you know, a very new type of content, a new experience. And that puts Hollywood actually in a good position even over Silicon Valley, because you've got creators here who get to pioneer this new media of virtual reality in a way that's basically like as if you were pioneering films like Orson Welles and creating new shots and new ways of telling narrative stories and new ways of creating interactivity all through this media, which will be gigantic, the timing of which is debatable, but it will absolutely be something big. And as a parent, frankly, VR is one of those things where I can't get my kids to look up from the iPad for 5 minutes. I can't imagine what happens when they have a mask on their face. But I do feel like Southern California is in a really good position to embrace it. It's a big trend. You're going to see continued massive investment, both from the existing infrastructure and existing strategics like the Disneys of the world, but also VC. And then another trend that there's a content trend that we didn't discuss before the panel that I'm fairly obsessed with, which is kids and family content on mobile devices. And as someone who's been following audiences on new platforms for a very long time, my title's Chief Audience Officer. I kind of made it up, but it basically means content's not king, distribution's not king, audience is king, right into what you said.
Oh, wait, think of a Jeff Bezos thing.
Toys and kid content has just exploded on mobile devices through platforms like YouTube primarily, and we've seen it go to billions and billions and billions of views of consumption of that content on a monthly basis, with whole new genres of content, like things where toy unboxing, which is probably something, unless you have a 2 to 5 year old in your house, is fairly unfamiliar, but essentially it is a set of hands opening a toy, describing the experience as they open the toy. It's got a great auditory experience, it's got a great visual experience, it's very pure to the extent that it's not like a slick ad, it's not driven by a commercial endeavor, it's purely from an entertainment perspective. And some of the biggest channels in the world, behind PewDiePie, are these toy unboxing channels, short animations for kids. And obviously, as Maker is now part of the Walt Disney Company, it's an area of great attention and focus for us and our brethren and other business units within the Walt Disney Company. And super exciting, because you really see tablets, for example, even in the mobile context, tablets is about 60% of the consumption of this kids and family content is coming on tablets.
Here we can even make movies anymore.
Yes.
Star Wars is the end. Almost. We're going to take some questions, but I wanted to, so get ready with your questions, but I want to ask you, what's the next trend for what you do in terms of monetizing and monitoring and helping the content owners?
Yeah. Well, look, video I helped launch MySpace Video in 2006, and it's still beginning, because Facebook is just jumping into it, Twitter, Snapchat, Flipagram. Video is only growing, and what I look forward to seeing is how the opportunities to monetize that grow, because right now YouTube is really the only place that these companies can do that. It won't stay that way, and because I also believe that more money from television will migrate, but they are waiting for standardization. You can't have a 3-second autoplay, no sound be a view, and a 30-second user-initiated be a view. We need some standardization, and I think when that happens, I think you'll see a more dramatic shift in dollars and onto these other platforms that are just now getting into video.
And one quick question. Post-millennials, what are you seeing with, what do they call them, centennials?
Gen Z.
Gen Z.
Gen Z.
Yeah, what trends are you seeing?
Well, we see it on Flipagram, but in our category in general is this trend of creating with your mobile device. Flipagram, Dubsmash, Musical.ly. There's a long list of these apps that let people create really compelling videos now, and a lot of it is using copyright, whether it's a film or TV or music in our case. But this idea of not just consuming anymore, but engaging and creating, which is a really, in my view, a positive trend. You hate for everyone just to turn into these consumers, but the technology on mobile now has gotten advanced enough that we have a kid in Rio who's creating these amazing videos with his Android phone that he bought for $40. So that's, I think, a big new trend that's just getting started.
Questions? Yeah. I see one, yes. Hold on, Stefan.
Sorry to Maker. So for every PewDiePie, how many content creators do you have to go through to get another PewDiePie?
Yeah, it's not quite an exact science. You know, I would say a large part of our, I can bifurcate our network for you a little bit. You know, we have 60,000 creators. I would characterize about 57,000 of them as hobbyists who've kind of raised their hand and said, I'd like to be more than a hobbyist. I'd like to be a professional. And we provide them with a lot of tools at scale. This is where technology actually has the greatest impact on our business, is finding and empowering the next PewDiePie into that upward slope. And we've seen a lot of great success there. And then we have kind of our professional creator class. These are people who make a living creating video full time. And there's a few thousand of those that we support. And most of them have come out of the hobbyist kind of layer. And then at the top, you've got the PewDiePies and the major stars, of which there's probably about 50 at Maker that we partner with. And several of those have come up through that kind of system. Folks like EvanTube, if you know kid content on YouTube, he's the largest brand of kid content on YouTube. We've got people like Markiplier is one of the largest gaming content creators that came out of that group. And so every week we're graduating creators from this kind of hobbyist class to the professional class, so that they're essentially quitting their jobs, their day jobs, going full time. And then once they're there, a portion of them are going to rise into superstardom. A lot of that's about desire as well, though. I mean, they kind of have to want that. It takes a lot of work to, beyond just talent, it takes an incredible amount of work to really get to a level of where, for example, PewDiePie is.
But there's also a lot of value in the non-superstars, at least in our network. We have the same ratio. I would say 1% of we have 7,000 to compare to Maker. But it's the ones that brands and networks and OTT platforms want to use over and over again, unfortunately. But we give a very big focus to the non-superstars because they're the ones who really drive the audiences. So you use them a lot as a marketing tool, to promote, okay, we have a new series with a big superstar, but then we have the other 6,999 people promoting, pushing that, sharing that, and there's a huge value to us in being able to do that, both for the creator and for whatever platform we are launching this content in. So we give equal value to the superstars and to the enthusiasts.
And by the way, empowering the superstars to identify the next superstars and give them incentives to do that has also been very helpful. So they know that they can send the elevator back down, promote someone that they believe is extraordinarily talented, and actually get them to rise not just to a professional level, but all the way to superstar.
That's very un-Hollywood of them.
It's a very collaborative.
It is an
medium.
incredible. Maker was founded by a collection of creators, and it's always given us that unique kind of creators are in our blood. We're founded that way. It was through collaboration and cross promotion of audiences that really grew Maker.
Any other questions? One here, one down here. Oh, I'm sorry. We'll get to you next.
Hi, I have a question sort of for all of you, but wanted to go back to something that was raised earlier by Beatriz about diversity. So you all are really building and creating the future. It's such a powerful role that you have in our society, content creators, distributors, and so forth. And I know there's a lot of segmentation of audiences now, so people can sort of find content that speaks to them in different places. But the segmentation also has an effect on kind of the joint understanding of culture and the way things are, where storytellers have in the past have had a very kind of powerful effect on kind of what we believe and how culture works. And so I'm wondering for you all, how do you see or not see your responsibility and role in promoting diverse stories? And I know we all kind of value diversity in theory, but it can be challenging in certain ways for all the structural reasons that we've talked about in the past. And so I'm wondering, kind of, have we gotten a handle on that? Do you feel like that's happening? And I don't mean, when I say diversity, I don't mean just representation, but I mean decision-making and content creation.
You know, Chris and I were talking before that a lot of our companies are data-led. So we don't create content, so I'll have someone speak to that, but we package stuff up based on what audiences are doing. We're not guessing, we're saying, we're seeing this happening within this certain audience segment, and we want to bring that inventory opportunity to an advertiser. So we're letting the actual users and or creators kind of tell their stories and let the data reinforce that their scale here, this is working. I'm not sure how you guys do it on the creation
I mean,
side.
look, our creators are when we're leveraging our resources to create content, it is always with a digital creator. And those digital creators, I think as Beatriz really pointed out, they've been filling a gap that has existed in media against diverse audiences. And it's not just, you know, Latinos or American Latinos. It's Asian Americans, it's African Americans, it's all sorts of very diverse. Our creator base is extraordinarily diverse, and in fact, much more diverse than mainstream media. And so when we're putting our resources to work to empower a creator to tell a bigger narrative than he might be able to do on his own, like, we're absolutely conscious of that diversity and are very focused on it.
I was just saying, I'll add, we have a massive audience, and we actually have a chief scientist who literally does formulas all day to figure out how to connect it's about 15 million videos every month being made on our platform around the world organically, and connecting those videos with audience and having relevant content. So to us, it's more data-driven than it is us making a business decision. It's using tech to solve that problem.
But in the workplace, I'm curious, because I watch Silicon Valley. I love that show.
And you
It's
know,
exactly
it
how
was
it is
Google
in
who put
startups.
that woman coder in the show. Do you
Right.
know the story about, right?
Well, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
but like Kara Swisher is the one female you see more than anyone else on that show, practically. You know what I'm saying? And because she's a real person and a journalist. But I'm just wondering, in the workplace, you obviously want to hire the best and the brightest, and be color and gender blind in that sense. But does it look like Silicon Valley? Does the office look like Silicon Valley? And
Not
do you
ours.
need to change that or not?
I think you have to pay attention to it, and I
Yeah.
think it's really important to have a diverse company and a diverse executive suite.
Yeah, I feel like we're doing pretty good at Flipagram.
Okay.
Yeah.
Another
Yeah, we're
question.
pretty much, I mean, we're still more male, heavy, but not by far. We're probably 60-40. And also as far as execs, board members, so we're pretty diverse, both with the content that's created, obviously, because everybody is diverse and just tells authentic stories, but the execs too. I mean, if you're going to be creating content for a demo that's very specific like ours, you want to represent that, even the people making the decision. So it's important for us to have that diversity.
We have time for one more question. I saw.
John, I have a question for John. You might have already answered the question, but what's the future for the Flipgram? And how are you coping with your competitors? And that doesn't get obsolete just like Twitter.
We want to basically stamp out Instagram. No, we're kind of in this. We're carving out a space that I do think is between kind of Instagram and YouTube. Where when you think of YouTube, this massive platform, but to make a video on YouTube is actually difficult. You need
That's true.
camera.
It's a high bar.
And, very high bar, and you don't have the rights to the music. And then once you finally get your video made and uploaded, no one will watch it unless you go out and market and distribute. So we're orders of magnitude easier to make a video, and we have the
That's
social
true.
built in. So we think there's a bit of a disruption happening with YouTube, but we are a social network, and there is that social viral loop that's happening typically with personal closed audiences. We're not like a YouTuber where we have all these big stars, although we do have stars. We call them Flip-A-Stars. So we're somewhere in between. And I think if we can continue to carve out this space, our hope is, you know, we're tens of millions of monthly actives. Our goal is hundreds of millions of monthly actives. In fact, our founder, Farhad, will tell you it's 1 billion mobile media creators is the goal.
Wow.
Cool.
Guys, thank you very much. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us today.
Thank you.